Well, good afternoon. So today we're going to take a dive into unemployment. What is unemployment? We'll talk about how economists define and compute the unemployment rate. We'll talk about the patterns of unemployment, what causes changes in unemployment over the short run, and what causes changes in unemployment over the long run. In this graphical presentation, robots are replacing the jobs historically done by workers in the bread factory. Uh, Definitely, automation has changed the way we work, but a lot of folks get retooled, reskilled in how to fix the robot and how to manage the robot on the production floor. So it still provides great opportunities for individuals in the workforce. So let's define the population first. The adult population consists of employed, those are people who are currently working for pay. The unemployed, the unemployed are out of work and actively looking for work or actively looking for a job. People are considered out of the labor force if they are not working and they're not actively looking for work. Whether they want to be or employed or not, if they're not doing those two things, they are out of the labor force. They're not counted in the labor force. What is the labor force? It's the number of employed plus unemployed. Remember, unemployed folks need to be looking for work to be counted in as unemployed. If they are not looking for work for whatever reason, they're considered out of the labor force. So when we look at defining and calculating the unemployment rate, it's unemployed people divided by the total labor force times 100. So employed, unemployed, and out of the labor force distribution, you can see here. Um, Probably in 21, we had a population of 262 million. Today, we're over 300 million. 155 million are employed. You've got 6.7 million, almost 7 million unemployed, and the remaining people are out of the labor force. Either they're not looking for work, or they're retired, or for some reason that they can't work. So that is the makeup of the labor force in 2021. Now, if you wanted to see it for the current year, you can Google the Bureau Labor Statistics and ask what composes the labor force, and they'll be able to pull up the numbers for the current year, 2020, probably 2025. Is there hidden employment in the country? Absolutely. So hidden unemployment is people who are mislabeled in the category of employed, unemployed, or out of the labor force. We have part-time or temporary workers looking for full-time or permanent work. You have underemployed folks, those they say they have a bachelor's degree or master's degree, but they're in a job that underemploys those skills. And then you have discouraged workers, those who just stop looking. I live in an area of the country where I've been looking for a job for the past 6 months, 8 months, or a year, and right now I can't find a job, so I'm discouraged. I'll stop looking. What is labor force participation rate? That's the percentage of adults in an economy who are either employed or who are unemployed and looking for work. So, how do we compute the labor force participation rate? We'll take the total labor force divided by the total adult population times 100. Again, the total labor force is employed, unemployed, looking for work, total population. The labor force participation rate tends to hover around 70% in this country for whatever reason, good or bad. I just wanted to give you a barometer. Here we look at a patterns of unemployment. The U.S. unemployment rate moves up and down as the economy moves in and out of recession. However, over time, the unemployment rate seems to return to a range of 4 to 6%. If you look today, you'll see unemployment rate around 4.5% right now. You look at this graph, it looks at gender, males and females. You'll see back in the 60s, say 70s through 75, there was a gap between male unemployment and female unemployment. That's because a lot of ladies were still work at home. They were homemakers. And in 1980, the late 80s and 90s, women began to move into the workforce. And today they're in the workforce. And in some cases, male unemployment is higher than female unemployment. By age, you can see here that age 16 through 19, that's the highest age group that has the highest unemployment rate. Why is that? Because when I was 16 through 19, I was in high school and on my way to college, didn't have a job. The older you get, you look at 20 to 24, 25 to 54, that's your mean working age. That's where you're gonna see the lowest unemployment here in the country in that age group. And by race, finally. And so you see here where white, Hispanic, and black, historically, whites have had the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Although that's changed a lot, uh, across the board. There's still some higher unemployment rates among folks of color. So, from comparison, when we look outside of the United States, the U.S. employment rate typically has looked a little better than average. There is caution when comparing cross-country unemployment rates due to different definitions of unemployment. We define it different than they do in Europe and the UK. Survey tools for measuring unemployment are different, and then different labor markets. In low-income countries, workers are not involved in the labor market through an employer who pays them regularly, but in short-term work, subsistence activities, and barter. A term cyclical unemployment, that's unemployment closely tied to the business cycle, like higher unemployment during recessions. So when we talk about cyclical unemployment, when we have expansion periods where there's a lot of growth in the country, you tend to see low unemployment. When we have recessions or depressionary areas where there's contraction in the economy, you tend to have higher unemployment. Unemployment and equilibrium in the labor market. We've talked about this. You've seen that supply and demand curve in previous chapters. In a labor market with flexible wages, the equilibrium will occur at wage WE and quantity E of labor and wage rate. Here, the number of people who want jobs, the supply curve equals the number who want jobs, the demand curve. Anytime you introduce a minimum wage, which is higher than that equilibrium wage, you're going to create unemployment. Because if you raise that wage, you've got more people who want to work, but people who own businesses, they can't hire the same number of people at a higher wage. They have to hire less people, they have to employ less people. And that's why you see that unemployment gap at the top. So what are implicit contract? It's a unwritten agreement in the labor market that the employer will try to keep wages from falling when the economy is weak or business is having trouble, and the employee will not expect huge salary increases when the economy or business is strong. What is the efficiency wage theory in economics? It's a theory that productivity of workers, either individually or as a group, will increase if their employer pays more. And that's true. I mean, if you get more money, you tend to be a little more productive at your workplace. What is the adverse selection of wage cuts argument? That means if employers reduce wages for all workers, the best will lead. and most will leave. So you're never going to be, rarely are you in an instance where you're going to see year over year wage decreases. You may see wages erode by inflation, but rarely, I just don't know of anyone who's going to go to their workers and say, hey, I know I hired you at 10.25 an hour last year. I'm going to lower you to 9.25 this year. That's just not going to happen. Why wages might be sticky downward continued. So insider, outsider model. So those already working for the firm are insiders who know the procedures, and other workers are outsiders who are recent and prospective hires. The relative wage coordination argument, meaning across the board wage cuts are hard for an economy to implement and workers fight against them. When we talk about sticky wages, what is sticky wages in economics? What we're actually saying is it's easy for wages to go up. It's hard for wages to go down. No boss is going to come to you and lower your wages, $1 or $2 after you've been there for a year. That's why we say wages are sticky. However, in the long term, it could be different. In the long term, they may give you, instead of a 2% raise or a 3% raise, they could give you a 1% raise or a no percent raise. Now, that does happen in the economy. So here we're just looking at the labor market expansion. You can see it in A, it's rising demand for labor, wages are rising. In B, you're going the opposite direction, falling demand for labor, sticky wages, unemployment. What we're saying is because of sticky wages. So if we have a contractionary period in the economy, meaning the economy is contracting, meaning productivity is falling, meaning I need less workers, uh, but I'm still paying that higher wage, then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to hire, and that's going to create higher unemployment. That's what these two are showing. So, in a labor market where wages do not decline, a fall in demand for labor is going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. A decline in the quantity of labor demanded at that wage is going to happen. So those workers who want to work at prevailing wage will not be able to find jobs. It's going to create unemployment. So again, my point here is if I have an economy or demand for labor that's contracting, because wages are sticky, because wages aren't going to come down in the short term, that's going to create unemployment because I've got less money in my bucket to hire employees with decreasing productivity in the marketplace. The natural rate of unemployment, the unemployment rate that would exist in a growing and healthy economy from the combination of economic, social, political factors that exist at a given time. Two more terms I'm going to introduce: frictional unemployment, unemployment that occurs as workers move between jobs. You just graduated from college, you got your dream job in the state of Florida, you got to move from Texas, so you got to pack up, move to Florida, get you a new place, move in, and get ready for work in a month. That's frictional unemployment. Structural unemployment is unemployment that occurs because individuals lack skills valued by employers. If you know how to make VHS recorders, you are not in business. That is a structural industry that's no longer in business. There's no blockbuster videos on each corner because we stream our movies, we stream our TV on our phones or on our television. We no longer need VHS recorders. Economists consider the economy to be full employment when the actual unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate of employment. These two graphical presentations look at the quantity of labor. We look at productivity rises and then stop rising. Then we look at productivity doesn't change, and then rises. So as productivity is rising, increasing the demand for labor. So if we are a more productive economy, we're going to want to hire more people so we can keep producing that widget. Employers and workers become used to a pattern of wage increases, then productivity certainly stops. There is a delay in the lag in the recognition that productivity is no longer increasing. As a result, wages keep rising as before, but the demand for labor is no longer increasing. So at the higher wage, you're going to have persistent unemployment is going to exist because the quantity of labor, because at that higher wage, a lot more people are going to want to work in that industry. But I'm not going to be able to hire them. And so it's going to exceed the quantity demanded. The quantity demanded of labor is going to be lower. So the rate of productivity increases has been zero for some time. So employers and workers have come to accept a lower equilibrium wage. Productivity increases unexpectedly, shifting the demand for labor. At that wage W, this means the quantity of labor exceeds the quantity supplied. Jobs are plentiful. The unemployment rate is low. On the supply side of the labor market, public policies to assist the unemployed can affect how eager people are to find work. In this country, if you're unemployed, you have to work first. But if you're unemployed, we have unemployment insurance, benefits, food stamps, government medical benefits for workers who are either between jobs or retraining or retooling. We do provide government assistance for job search and retraining as well in this country. And that's a good thing. On the demand side of the labor market, some public policies can affect the willingness of firms to hire. Government rules, social institutions can do so, and also the presence of unions can do so as well. Underlying economic, social, and political factors that determine the natural rate of unemployment can definitely change over time, which means that the natural rate of unemployment can change over time. We tend to say the natural rate is between 4.5% to 5.5%. Again, if you look it up today, what's the unemployment rate? It's hovering around 4.5%. Reasons, internet as a job seeking tool, growth in the temporary working industry, the aging baby boom generation beginning to retire. And that's it. So we've learned, I think the key takeaways I want you to know how we compute the unemployment rate, know what out of the labor force means, know how we compute the labor force participation rate, know the difference between structural, frictional, cyclical unemployment. And that'll make me happy. So thank you and thanks for your time.